I'm Sarah Evans, 29, and I inherited my late grandmother's lakeside cabin 6 months ago. I thought it would be my refuge, the perfect break from my chaotic life as a senior project manager in downtown New York. That Friday, all I wanted was to unwind for the weekend, just me, the lake, and the silence. But as I turned the last corner of the long, winding driveway, everything froze. There it was, a moving truck parked recklessly across my driveway, boxes scattered everywhere. And inside, through the window, I saw a woman, pregnant no less, arranging a nursery in my home. My grandmother Betty was the one person who really mattered to me growing up. When my parents split when I was 7, Grandma Betty stepped in and became my pillar of strength. Every summer, from age 8 through college, I spent weeks at her cabin in the mountains of Vermont. Those summers became the foundation of who I am today. The cabin itself wasn't anything fancy, a 2-bedroom log structure with a stone fireplace, wraparound porch, and private dock on Arrowhead Lake. But what made it special was how Grandma Betty taught me everything I know. How to hook a worm and clean the fish we caught. How to identify the first bird calls at dawn. How to paddle a canoe against the morning current. How to build a fire that would burn bright all night. "This place has life, Sarah," she'd say, using the nickname only she called me. Not the kind you hear about in ghost stories, the kind that shapes you, the kind that stays with you forever. We'd sit on the dock at sunset, feet dangling in the cold water, eating homemade ice cream, talking about everything under the sun. As I got older, those moments turned into deeper talks about my hopes, fears, and the future I wasn't sure I could achieve. When I battled anxiety in high school, it was at the cabin where Grandma Betty taught me to meditate. When I doubted my path during college, it was on that dock where she helped me figure it all out. The cabin meant more than a house. It was a symbol of love, wisdom, and the life lessons she imparted to me. When Grandma Betty was diagnosed with heart failure a few years back, the family came together to support her. My sister Claire visited often with her husband, Ethan. My parents, despite their divorce, both stepped up to help with appointments, but it was me who stayed at her house full-time to care for her. During that time, Ethan started hinting about the cabin. "Grandma Betty always loved this place," he'd say offhandedly. Claire and I had always dreamed of escaping to a peaceful retreat like that, away from the noise of the city. I never entertained those comments. My focus was on making Grandma Betty comfortable, not on any talk of inheritance. 2 months before she passed, Grandma Betty made some final changes to her will with her attorney, Linda. She gathered us all in her living room that afternoon. "I've made my decisions with a clear mind," she said, her voice shaking. "The cottage will be sold, and the proceeds will be shared equally among you all. My investments, too, will be divided." Then she turned to me. "Sarah, the cabin goes to you. You've always understood what makes it so special. I know you'll honor its spirit just like I did." The room fell dead silent. I could hardly breathe, feeling a wave of emotion crashing over me. The gratitude mixed with the painful reality that soon she would be gone. Claire hugged me tightly, whispering, "She made the right choice. You love this place more than anyone else." But Ethan's reaction was different. His congratulations felt empty, his smile thin and forced. Later, in the kitchen, I overheard him telling Claire, "It should have been ours. We're the ones trying for a family. What does Sarah need with a whole cabin? She's single." Claire defended me instantly. "It's not about need, Ethan. It's about connection." Still he pushed, insisting family property should be shared by everyone. As the months went by, with Grandma Betty's health worsening, Ethan became more vocal about sharing the cabin. He cornered me with remarks like, "Once it's yours, we should set up a schedule. 2 weeks for you, 2 weeks for us. That's fair, right?" I would always dodge the question, not wanting to stir up trouble while Grandma Betty was still around. "We'll figure out the details later," I'd say, hoping the conversation would just end. After Grandma Betty passed and the will was officially read, I became the sole owner of the cabin. At the small family gathering after the funeral, Ethan approached me once more. "So, about summer plans for the cabin," he said, casual as always. This time I was clear. "Ethan, I appreciate you being interested, but I'm not ready to set up any sort of sharing schedule yet." "I need time," I said, "but Claire and I were hoping to take the kids there this summer." Ethan persisted. Claire and Ethan had no kids yet, even though they'd been talking about starting a family for what felt like forever. "I understand, but the cabin is my private property now. When I'm ready to have guests, you'll be one of the first people I invite." His face turned cold. "That's pretty selfish, don't you think? Hoarding a family resource?" Claire pulled him away before I could respond, but the whole conversation left me unsettled. It became obvious that Ethan never truly accepted the fact that the cabin was solely mine. Monday morning meetings at Tower Consulting were always a nightmare. As senior project manager, I was in charge of presenting weekend metrics for our biggest clients. That particular Monday, our most important client, Pure Fit Health, was threatening to pull their $1 million account due to underperforming campaigns. "We need a total overhaul by Friday," my boss Derek insisted. "Sarah, I need you to take charge of this," Derek pushed. "Whatever it takes." That meant I was facing 14-hour days ahead. By Wednesday, I was on the verge of a breakdown. That night, my phone buzzed. It was Claire. "Hey, Sarah," she said, her voice unusually quiet. "Got a minute to talk?" I balanced my phone between my ear and shoulder while typing away at work. "For you always." "What's going on?" "Ethan and we separated 3 weeks ago," she said. "I'm staying at Mom's for now." My fingers froze. "What? Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Claire sighed. "It's complicated. Ethan's been seeing someone else. A woman named Hazel from his office." "I'm so sorry, Claire," I said, genuinely shocked. Claire and Ethan had been together since college, almost a decade. "There's more," Claire continued. "Hazel's pregnant, about 7 months along. He's been seeing her for nearly a year now." I was speechless. The timing hit me hard. He'd been cheating on Claire while we were taking care of our dying Grandma Betty. "The kicker," Claire said bitterly. "He suddenly wants to settle down and start a family with her, after all those years of saying he wasn't ready for kids. Now he's desperate to create this perfect family image," Claire added. "He even bought a crib last week." After I comforted Claire, I promised to visit her over the weekend. We hung up, and I tried to get back to work, but my thoughts kept drifting to Ethan's betrayal. Just before midnight, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Sarah, it's Ethan. Need a favor? Can I use the cabin this weekend?" "Just for a couple of days?" I stared at the message in disbelief. After everything Claire had just shared, he had the audacity to ask for a favor. I typed back quickly, "No, Ethan, that won't work for me." His response came immediately. "Come on, I'm in a tight spot, moving out, and need some temporary space." "It's just sitting there empty anyway." "No," I replied firmly. "Please respect that." 3 dots popped up, vanished, and then came back. "I thought family helped family." "Guess I was wrong about you," he shot back. I didn't respond. The next morning, another text came through. "You're being unreasonable. Claire and I are just going through a rough time. I just need somewhere quiet to clear my head." I showed the text to Lauren, my best friend from college, during lunch. "The nerve of him," Lauren said. "He's manipulating you with that family helps family nonsense. Classic guilt trip." "I know," I said, agreeing. "And he didn't even mention that he left Claire for a pregnant girlfriend." "You need to be crystal clear with him," Lauren advised. "No room for him to twist anything." Later that evening, I sent Ethan a final message. "To be clear, you do not have permission to use my cabin. Not this weekend. Not any weekend. Don't go there. Don't ask again." he replied with a single thumbs down emoji. By Friday, I had worked 4 straight 16-hour days. The Pure Fit campaign had been completely reworked, but at a huge personal cost. My eyes were burning from screen fatigue. My shoulders were aching from the stress, and my brain felt foggy from the exhaustion. "You need a break," Derek said after our last client call. "Take Monday off. You've earned it," he added, his tone firm. That's when I decided I needed to get away and drive up to the cabin myself. A weekend surrounded by lake air, peace, and solitude was exactly what I needed. I texted Claire to reschedule our visit, grabbed a small bag, and left by 3 p.m. During the 3-hour drive up north, I could feel the tension slowly melting away. Windows down, music blasting, the scent of pine trees growing stronger as I left the city behind. I stopped at a small market in the last town before the cabin, picking up comfort food, pancake mix, fresh berries, coffee, and a bottle of wine. As I made the final turn onto the private road leading to the cabin, I was already imagining my evening, sipping wine on the dock, watching the sunset. A glass of wine, the sunset, just like Grandma Betty and I used to do. That's when I saw it. A huge moving truck parked right in my driveway. The truck was parked awkwardly, blocking the gravel driveway. Its rear doors were wide open like a gaping mouth. Boxes piled up on the porch, some of them spilling their contents. Kitchen appliances, bedding, photos, everything strewn out of boxes. And beside the truck was a blue sedan with a baby on board sticker. My hands clenched the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. This couldn't be happening. Not after I had specifically told them no. I parked right behind the truck, blocking it in, and took a moment to collect myself. Part of me wanted to call the police right then, but another part needed to confirm what I already feared before escalating things. As I got out of my car, I took in more details. Men's clothes thrown over the porch railing, a half-assembled crib leaning against the wall, a dog bowl with water, but no dog in sight. I walked around the edge of the cabin, peering through the windows. The living room was a mess, boxes piled high, and unfamiliar furniture scattered everywhere. My grandmother Betty's antique fishing rods, which always hung proudly on the wall, were now carelessly tossed in a corner. Through the bedroom window, I saw a woman with auburn hair struggling to hang a mobile of woodland creatures over what used to be my peaceful reading nook. The room had been completely transformed, pale yellow walls, woodland decals, and a changing table. They were turning my cabin into a nursery without my permission. My hand shook as I walked back to the front door. I fumbled with the key, unlocked it, and stepped inside. "Hello?" I called, my voice steadier than I felt. A startled gasp came from the bedroom, and then a very pregnant woman appeared in the hallway. She had kind eyes and appeared to be in her early 30s, her hand protectively cradling her rounded belly. "Oh," she exclaimed, looking confused. "You must be Claire. Ethan said you might come by to help. I'm Hazel." Her assumption threw me off completely. "I'm not Claire," I said slowly. "I'm Sarah Evans. This is my cabin." Hazel's face fell, a wave of confusion spreading across her features. "Sarah, Ethan's sister-in-law," she trailed off, her expression shifting to uncertainty. "What exactly did Ethan tell you about this place?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. "That it's your family's cabin, and you're letting us stay while we find a new house," Hazel explained. "He said you were incredibly generous to offer it, especially with the baby coming so soon," she added, gesturing to her belly. "We're due in 6 weeks," she said softly. A chill ran down my spine. "Hazel, I never offered the cabin to Ethan," I said firmly. "In fact, I told him explicitly that he could not use it. This property belongs to me. I inherited it from my grandmother Betty." Hazel's face drained of color. "But we're moving in. Ethan said we could stay as long as we needed. He's already given notice on his apartment." Her voice rose with panic. "He said you were happy to help us during this transition." "None of that is true," I snapped. "Ethan doesn't have permission to be here, let alone live here." The sound of tires crunching on gravel interrupted the conversation. Through the window, I saw Ethan's black truck pulling up beside my car. He stepped out of the truck carrying takeout, whistling like he owned the place. The door swung open, and Ethan froze mid-step when he saw me. "Sarah," he said quickly, forcing a smile. "What a surprise. Didn't expect you until tomorrow." "I never said I was coming tomorrow. I told you not to come here at all," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "What exactly do you think you're doing, Ethan?" He set the takeout down, spreading his hands in a mock placating gesture. "Now, let's not make a scene in front of Hazel. She's in a delicate condition." "Answer the question," I insisted. "Why are you moving into my cabin after I told you no?" Ethan's face hardened. "Look, you're being unreasonable. You have this big cabin, and it sits empty most of the time. We need somewhere to stay. This is a perfect solution." "A perfect solution would be respecting my property and my boundaries," I shot back. "It's family property," Ethan argued, his voice rising. "Your grandmother would have wanted to help family in need," he pressed. "Don't you dare invoke my grandmother," I warned, my voice low. "This cabin was left to me, not the family as a whole." "You have no rights here, Ethan." Ethan stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Be reasonable, Sarah. Hazel's 7 months pregnant. We need stability. We've already started moving in. You can't just throw a pregnant woman out." I glanced at Hazel, who was looking more distressed by the second, then back at Ethan. "You put her in this position, not me. You lied to her about having permission to be here." "We're not leaving," Ethan said flatly. "I've set up mail, forwarding, and utilities in my name. The movers are coming tomorrow with the rest of our things." "This is illegal," I pointed out. "It's trespassing and theft." Ethan laughed coldly. "Go ahead, call the cops on a pregnant woman. See how that plays with the family, with the neighbors." "You'll be the villain, not me." The manipulation was so blatant, it left me breathless. He had set this entire situation up, counting on guilt and social pressure to force me into compliance. "You have until morning to pack up and leave," I stated firmly. "Both of you," Ethan challenged, stepping closer, using his height to tower over me. "This is happening, Sarah. The sooner you accept it, the easier it'll be for everyone. We're staying. We're setting up the nursery. This is our home now." In that moment, I saw Ethan for the first time. Clearly, not as my brother-in-law, but as a man willing to bully and manipulate to get what he wanted. Someone who had cheated on Claire while we were caring for our dying grandmother, who had lied to his pregnant girlfriend, and who now thought he could take my property by force. "This will never be your home," I said, my voice cold and quiet. A heavy silence settled in the cabin. Hazel had retreated to the bedroom, and I could hear her soft sobs through the thin walls. Part of me felt terrible for her. She was clearly a victim of Ethan's lies too. But the larger part of me was seething with rage. Ethan had made himself comfortable on my grandmother's recliner, pointedly ignoring me as he scrolled through his phone. The way he casually claimed the space made my blood boil. "You need to talk to Hazel," I said. "She deserves to know the truth about this situation." "I'll handle Hazel," Ethan replied without looking up from his phone. "She's emotional with the pregnancy hormones. Better to let her calm down," he said dismissively. I walked to the kitchen to grab some water and collect my thoughts. On the counter were moving documents with Ethan's new address listed as the cabin. He'd been planning this for weeks, methodically laying the groundwork for a permanent move. When I came back to the living room, Ethan was gone. Through the window, I saw him making phone calls, gesturing with his hands, getting ready for his next move. I knocked softly on the bedroom door. "Hazel, can we talk?" I asked quietly. The door opened to reveal Hazel sitting on the bed, her eyes red from crying. "I'm so confused," she whispered, her voice shaky. "Ethan promised me we had permission to stay here." I sat beside her, keeping a respectful distance between us. I'm sorry you've been put in this position, but I need you to understand. Ethan never asked if you could stay here, and when he asked to visit, I clearly told him no. Hazel wiped her eyes, sniffling. He told me you were excited to help, especially with the baby on the way, that you said we could stay until we found the perfect house, even if it took a year. My jaw tightened. None of that is true. This cabin is mine. It's my private property. It's not family property, and it's certainly not Ethan's to offer. Where are we supposed to go? Hazel asked, her hands protectively resting on her belly. Ethan gave up his apartment. My lease ended last month when I moved in with him temporarily. We have nowhere else. The weight of her situation wasn't lost on me, but neither was Ethan's manipulative game. He had created this crisis on purpose. Before I could say anything, the front door slammed open. Ethan stormed into the bedroom, his face red with anger. What did you do to the locks? He demanded. What are you talking about? I haven't touched any locks, I replied, genuinely confused. The shed? I can't get in. Did you change the locks? I stood up, glaring. The shed has always had a separate key, one that you don't have because this isn't your property. I need to get in there. We're storing our things in there. No, you're not, I said firmly. You're not storing anything here because you're not staying. Ethan stepped closer, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. Listen carefully. I spoke with the neighbors, told them we're moving in to help take care of the family property while you're busy in the city. They're thrilled to have someone here year-round. Everyone thinks it's a great arrangement. The calculated way he'd worked this situation stunned me. You're trying to create some fake sense of community consensus, I shot back. I also told them how emotional you've been since your grandmother passed, how sometimes you get confused about things we've agreed on. His smile was icy. If this escalates, they'll know who to believe. The threat was clear. If I made a move, he'd paint me as unstable and himself as the calm, reasonable one. Get out of my house, I said, my voice trembling. Make me, Ethan replied, his voice mocking. Better yet, call the cops. I'll show them the mail I've had forwarded here, the utilities I switched to my name. I'll tell them about the verbal agreement we had and how you're now trying to back out. I'll have poor pregnant Hazel crying about how you're making her homeless. Hazel looked up at us, shocked. Ethan, what are you saying? He ignored her completely. Face it, Sarah. The smart move is to accept it. We're staying for at least a year, maybe longer. Something inside me snapped. This is my grandmother's legacy to me, not yours. I will not be bullied or manipulated into giving up what's mine. Ethan's expression darkened. Then things are going to get very ugly for everyone, he threatened. I grabbed my purse and car keys. I need some air, I muttered. Outside, I sat in my car, hands shaking too much to even insert the key. Tears of frustration blurred my vision. How had this happened? How had a simple weekend getaway turned into this? I called Lauren immediately. He's done what? She exclaimed after I explained everything. That's not just crossing a boundary, Sarah. That's criminal. He's thought of everything, I said. He's manipulated this entire situation. So, if I stand my ground, I'm the villain, right? Document everything, Lauren advised, her voice firm. Take photos of them on the property without permission. Record anything you can if it's legal in your state. Call a lawyer first thing tomorrow morning. What do I do tonight? I asked. I can't stay here with him, but I can't leave them alone in the cabin either. Is there a hotel nearby where you can regroup and make a plan? There's a small inn about 20 minutes away. Yes, but it feels like giving up. It's not giving up, Lauren reassured me. It's strategically retreating to prepare your response. Don't engage with him while you're emotional. That's exactly what he wants. After hanging up, I started the car but didn't leave right away. Instead, I began snapping pictures of the moving truck, the boxes, the new locks, evidence. Just as I finished, Ethan emerged from the cabin, walking quickly. He taunted, "Typical. When things get tough, you always retreat." I ignored him and started recording video on my phone, keeping it partially hidden. "For the record," I said clearly, "you do not have permission to be on this property. You don't have permission to change locks, forward mail, or establish residency here. You are trespassing, and I am formally asking you to leave." Ethan's demeanor shifted instantly when he realized I was gathering evidence. "Turn that off," he snapped, reaching for my phone. I stepped back quickly, heart racing. "Touch me or my property, and it's assault," I warned, my voice cold. His face twisted with rage. "You think you're so clever, don't you? Always the golden child, Sarah, the one who can do no wrong. The one who gets everything handed to her?" The outburst revealed something I hadn't fully understood until now, his deep resentment. This wasn't just about the cabin. It was about years of what he saw as injustice in his mind. "This isn't about me," I said calmly, still recording. "This is about your choices. You chose to lie to Hazel about having permission to stay here." Just then, Hazel appeared on the porch, having overheard everything. "You told me Sarah had offered us the cabin," Hazel said to Ethan, her voice shaking. "You said it was all arranged." Ethan spun around. "Get back inside, Hazel. This doesn't concern you." "It absolutely concerns me," Hazel snapped. Hazel started crying again. "You've put our baby's future at risk with these lies. Where are we supposed to go if we can't stay here?" Ethan insisted. "We are staying here. Sarah is the one being unreasonable, not letting you steal my property," I interrupted. Hazel slowly descended the porch steps, one hand on her back. "I can't be part of this, Ethan. You promised me stability. You promised me honesty, after everything with Claire. This isn't right." Ethan's face twisted with anger. "Don't you dare side with her, after everything I've done for you and the baby." "What you've done is lie to me," Hazel said, more tears streaming down her face. She turned to me. "I'm so sorry, Sarah. I had no idea. I would never have agreed to this if I'd known the truth." Suddenly, Hazel gasped, clutching her belly, doubling over slightly. "Hazel," I rushed to her side, supporting her arm. "Are you okay?" I asked, my voice tight. "Just a sharp pain?" She winced, nodding. "I've been having them on and off all day." Alarm bells went off in my mind. "How far apart are the pains?" I asked, my tone urgent. "I don't know, maybe 20 minutes. "It's probably just Braxton Hicks," she said, trying to reassure herself. "The doctor said they're normal." "We should get you checked out anyway," I said firmly. 7 months is too early for real labor." Ethan stood frozen, paralyzed by the medical situation, and I could tell by the collapse of his plans. "I'll take her to the hospital," I decided, glaring at Ethan. "You can stay here and start packing up your things. When we get back, I expect progress on that front." As I helped Hazel to the car, leaving Ethan standing motionless in the driveway, I realized we had reached the breaking point. There was no turning back now. The nearest hospital was 45 minutes away in Bridgeport. As I drove, Hazel called her obstetrician, who reassured her it was just stress-induced Braxton Hicks contractions, but still advised a checkup. "I'm so embarrassed," Hazel muttered after hanging up. "I had no idea Ethan was lying about the cabin," she added, her voice thick with guilt. "It's not your fault," I said, keeping my eyes fixed on the winding road ahead. "Ethan is manipulative. He lied to both of us." Hazel stared out the window, lost in thought. "He's been doing that a lot lately," Hazel said, her voice trembling. "Telling me one thing, and then I find out later it wasn't true." "Like what?" I asked, genuinely curious about the man who had been married to Claire for almost 10 years. "He told me he and Claire were separated for 6 months before we got involved," Hazel confessed. "I later found out it had been barely 2 weeks," she continued, shaking her head. Hazel confessed. "He said he told her about us, but then she called me at work, completely shocked." The pieces were falling into place now. When did you find out you were pregnant? I asked gently. Around Christmas, Hazel replied. I wanted to end things when I realized how much he'd lied to me. But then she placed a protective hand on her belly, as if trying to shield the baby from the hurt. I couldn't go through with an abortion. It just didn't feel right for me. And Ethan? Hazel laughed bitterly, a sad, hollow sound. Suddenly he was all in, Hazel said, her tone laced with irony. Baby names, nursery plans, marriage. It was a complete 180 from the man who told me he didn't even want kids when we first met. We lapsed into silence as we neared the Bridgeport Memorial Hospital. The emergency room was mercifully quiet, and Hazel was taken to an examination room while I sat nervously in the waiting area. I used the time to call Claire. Ethan did what? Claire exclaimed when I explained the situation. He moved into the cabin without permission and refuses to leave. I'm at the hospital with Hazel now, I repeated. Is she okay? Claire asked, her voice filled with concern. I think so, just stress-induced contractions. Claire sighed heavily. I'm so sorry, Sarah. This is partly my fault. I should have warned you he might try something like this. He's been acting more and more erratic since I asked for the separation. This goes beyond erratic, I pointed out. This is calculated and manipulative. That's Ethan, Claire said sadly. Under pressure, he stopped seeing people as people. They become obstacles or tools. It's why I finally left. I realized I was never really a person to him, just a tool for his own goals. Her insight struck me hard. I never saw that side of Ethan before. He hides it well until he doesn't. After hanging up, I immediately dialed the non-emergency line for the county sheriff. The dispatcher connected me with Sheriff Rodriguez, who listened carefully to my situation. Unfortunately, Miss Evans, this falls into a gray area, he explained. If he's established any kind of residency claim, even a fraudulent one, it would become a civil matter, requiring formal eviction. But he just arrived today, I protested, and I have proof I denied permission. That helps, Sheriff Rodriguez said, his voice calm. In that case, we can treat it as trespassing. I'll send a deputy to accompany you back to the property and ensure he leaves peacefully. Relief washed over me. Thank you. We're at the hospital now, but should be back within a couple of hours. I'll have Deputy Rodriguez meet you there at 6. And Miss Evans, document everything. Take photos, videos, and keep all text messages. If this escalates to court, you'll need that evidence. Hazel emerged from the examination room, looking worn out but relieved. False alarm, Hazel confirmed, letting out a breath. The doctor said it's just stress and dehydration, but I need to rest and avoid tension for a few days. I nodded, already forming a plan in my mind. I'll get you a hotel room for tonight, and tomorrow, we'll figure out your next steps. I can't afford a hotel, Hazel said, looking anxious. I've been on unpaid leave for 3 weeks because of back pain. I've got it covered, I assured her. This isn't your mess to clean up. On the drive back, I explained my conversation with Sheriff Rodriguez. Hazel agreed to head directly to the hotel while I returned to the cabin with the deputy. The Holiday Inn in town had a vacancy, and I paid for 3 nights in advance, giving Hazel my number and promising to check on her tomorrow. Thank you, Hazel said earnestly as I turned to leave. You have every right to hate me, but instead you're helping me, Hazel said, her voice thick with gratitude. I don't hate you, Hazel. You're as much a victim of Ethan's manipulation as anyone. When Deputy Rodriguez and I pulled up to the cabin at 6, the scene was even worse than I'd feared. The front door was wide open. Inside, furniture was overturned, and several of my grandmother's framed photos were shattered on the floor. Looks like someone had a tantrum, Deputy Rodriguez observed, his hand instinctively resting on his holstered weapon. We found Ethan in the backyard, burning papers in the fire pit when he spotted the deputy. His expression flickered between defiance and fear. Ethan Evans, Rodriguez called out. I'm Deputy Rodriguez with the County Sheriff's Department. We've received a complaint of trespassing on private property. Ethan straightened, adopting an injured look. There's been a misunderstanding, officer. This is family property. I'm within my rights to be here. I stepped forward, clutching the folder with the necessary documents. I have the deed and my grandmother's will right here. The property belongs solely to me, Sarah Evans. Mr. Evans has no rights to it. Rodriguez carefully examined the documents. These appear in order, Mr. Evans. Miss Evans has the legal right to decide who can and cannot be on this property. We had a verbal agreement, Ethan insisted, shooting me a venomous glare. I have text messages proving otherwise, I countered, showing the deputy our exchange where I clearly denied permission. Deputy Rodriguez turned to Ethan. Sir, at this point, you have two options. You can leave voluntarily with your belongings, or we'll arrest you for trespassing. Miss Evans has made it clear you do not have permission to be here. Ethan's face twisted with fury. This is ridiculous. I have rights. Not to this property you don't, Rodriguez stated flatly. Now what's it going to be? For a tense moment, I thought Ethan might refuse. Then, his shoulders slumped and he muttered, Fine, I'll get my stuff. I'll need to supervise that process, Rodriguez informed him. Standard procedure, Rodriguez added. It took 2 hours for Ethan to pack up his and Hazel's things into the truck. With each box, his resentment seemed to grow. As he finished packing, he fixed me with a cold, hate-filled stare. This isn't over, Sarah, Ethan spat. The family will hear how you treated a pregnant woman. I'll sue for my rightful share of this property. I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you are. Rodriguez stepped between us, his hand resting on his holster. That's enough, Mr. Evans, Rodriguez said firmly. Any harassment or threats will result in additional charges. Ethan snorted derisively, but didn't say another word. He climbed into his truck, while Rodriguez ensured the moving van driver had new delivery instructions. As the vehicles disappeared down the driveway, relief flooded through me like a wave. Rodriguez handed me his business card. Call me immediately if he returns, and I strongly recommend changing your locks tonight. I can recommend a local locksmith if you need one. After he left, I stood in the middle of the wrecked cabin, surveying the damage. It wasn't just the overturned furniture or shattered glass that stung. It was the violation of my sanctuary, the place I had always felt safe. What had once been a place of peace now felt tainted and violated. As I started picking up the broken pieces of my grandmother's photo frames, carefully preserving the images inside, I made a silent vow. I would reclaim this space, no matter what. I wouldn't let Ethan's actions destroy what this cabin meant to me. I called the locksmith Rodriguez had recommended, and he arrived within the hour to replace all the locks. That night, I slept restlessly on the couch, jumping at every sound from the woods, wondering if Ethan would follow through on his implied threats. The morning after Ethan left, I woke to a gentle knock on the door. Disoriented and cautious, I peered through the peephole and saw Claire standing on the porch, holding 2 cups of coffee and a bag from the bakery. Reinforcements have arrived, she said with a warm smile as I opened the door. I drove up first thing when you texted me about the locks, Claire explained. The simple gesture of solidarity brought unexpected tears to my eyes. We hugged tightly before taking in the damage inside. Ethan always was a sore loser, Claire remarked, surveying the chaos. But this is a new low, even for him. We spent the morning cleaning, trying to restore order to the chaos Ethan had left behind. Claire shared more about the downfall of their marriage over the past year. He became obsessed with appearances, Claire explained as we swept up the broken glass from picture frames. The right house, the right car, the right connections. When I couldn't get pregnant after 2 years of trying, he started blaming me. He said I was denying him the perfect package he deserved. That's horrible, I said, pausing my cleaning. You never told me. Claire shrugged, looking down. It was humiliating, Claire admitted. Then I found texts between him and Hazel on his phone. The things he said about me. Claire trailed off, blinking back tears. You deserved better, I told her firmly. So did Hazel, Claire replied, surprising me. She's young and impressionable. Ethan has a way of making you believe you're special until you're no longer useful. By afternoon, Claire and I had restored most of the cabin, though the emotional scars still lingered. I called Hazel to check on her, relieved to hear she was resting at the hotel. I've been thinking, I told her. I know some people at the women's shelter in Bridgeport. They have a place for women in transition. Would you like me to make a call for you? Hazel's voice trembled. Really? That would be amazing. I was panicking, not knowing what to do next. I made the call. By evening, Hazel had an appointment set for Monday. It wasn't a permanent solution, but it would give her safety and stability for now. That evening, Claire and I sat on the dock, feet dangling in the cool water, just like my grandmother and I used to do. The sunset painted the lake in soft orange and pink hues, a beautiful contrast to the ugliness of the day. Do you think Ethan will try to cause more trouble? Claire asked. I sighed. Probably. He's wounded and vengeful, but I've spoken to a lawyer, and my ownership is solid. The best he can do is try to poison family relationships. Mom and Dad are already on your side, Claire assured me. I filled them in. They're horrified by what he's done. The next day brought an unexpected discovery. While cleaning the bedroom that Ethan and Hazel briefly occupied, I found a stack of overdue bills tucked inside a dresser drawer. Credit card statements showing maxed out accounts, a foreclosure notice for a property I didn't even know Ethan owned, and a demand letter from a payday loan company. He's broke, I realized, showing Claire. That's why he was so desperate for the cabin. He's drowning in debt. Claire examined the papers. This explains so much, Claire said. The sudden interest in family property, the pressure to let him move in. A wave of clarity hit me. He wasn't just being entitled, he was financially desperate. This didn't excuse Ethan's behavior, but it helped explain why he reacted the way he did. He didn't just want the cabin, he needed it as a financial lifeline. Over the next few days, Claire and I found a new rhythm at the cabin. Claire decided to stay for the week, working remotely while I did the same. We took breaks to swim in the lake, hike the trails, and reconnect as sisters. I also visited Hazel at the Women's Center, bringing her remaining things and helping her navigate resources for single mothers. Despite everything, Hazel and I began to develop a tentative friendship. Ethan keeps calling, Hazel confided during one visit, alternating between apologies and accusations. The counselor here says that's typical manipulative behavior. Are you still talking to him? I asked. Hazel shook her head, her expression weary. I'm focusing on making a stable plan for this baby, she replied, determination in her voice. I can't have that kind of chaos in our lives, she added firmly. Her strength left me in awe. In the midst of pregnancy, homelessness, and heartbreak, she was making difficult but responsible decisions. 10 days after the confrontation, I received a certified letter from an attorney representing Ethan. He claimed Ethan had established tenancy at the cabin and was demanding fair compensation for his eviction. My lawyer responded swiftly, presenting our documented evidence, text messages proving I denied permission, Deputy Rodriguez's witness statement, and the property deed in my name alone. We never heard from Ethan's lawyer again. 3 weeks later, I uncovered another hidden blessing from Grandma Betty. While reorganizing her old desk, I found a leather-bound journal I had never seen before. Inside, dated entries chronicled her thoughts on family, legacy, and stewardship of property. One entry, written 2 months before her death, caught my eye. Decided to leave the cabin to Sarah alone. Some might call it favoritism, but it's about stewardship. She understands this place isn't just property. It's a sanctuary, a place that demands respect and offers wisdom in return. Others see it as an asset, but Sarah sees its soul. She'll face pressure to share ownership or usage, but I hope she stands firm. Some gifts aren't meant to be divided. Their power lies in their wholeness. Tears streamed down my face as I read her words. Even from beyond, Grandma Betty had anticipated the challenges I would face, offering encouragement to stand my ground. That entry became my guiding light during the difficult months that followed. I had the journal entry framed and hung it beside the fireplace, a constant reminder of both Grandma Betty's wisdom and the boundaries I had to fight for. I took practical steps to protect my home and sanctuary. Security cameras were installed at key entry points. A formal rental agreement was drafted for any future family members who might use the cabin, with clear terms and time limits. The property lines were formally surveyed and clearly marked. These measures weren't born from paranoia. They were about establishing clear boundaries and expectations for respecting the sanctuary that Grandma Betty had entrusted to me. Slowly, the cabin reclaimed its peace. The nursery was converted back into a reading nook, and eventually into a small office where I could work remotely, extending my stays from weekends to weeks. By the 3-month mark, the emotional wounds had begun to heal. The cabin no longer felt tainted by Ethan's intrusion, but instead, it was stronger for the boundaries I had put in place to protect it. One evening, as I sat on the dock, watching fireflies dance over the dark water, I realized something important. In defending my inheritance, I had also inherited Grandma Betty's strength, her courage to stand firm on what mattered most, her wisdom in knowing when kindness means setting boundaries. That revelation felt like the final piece falling into place in my healing journey. The cabin was more than ever my sanctuary now, not because it was unchanged, but because I had fought for it, reclaimed it, and made it mine in a way that felt more profound than ever. 3 months after what Claire and I now called the invasion, life had finally found a new rhythm. Ethan's threats of legal action fizzled out when his lawyer saw how rock-solid my ownership claim was. My relationship with Claire had strengthened through our shared struggle of setting firm boundaries with Ethan. As for Hazel, she found stability at the Women's Resource Center, landing a remote part-time job that worked around her pregnancy, and later, her newborn. When baby Noah arrived 6 weeks after the cabin confrontation, I visited them in the hospital, bringing a small stuffed fish, a reminder of the ones I used to catch in Lake Arrowhead. "Aunt Sarah is here," Hazel said, holding Noah close. The honorary title caught me off guard. "Aunt?" I asked softly, a bit surprised. "You've been more family to us than Noah's actual father," Hazel said, her voice laced with emotion. "Ethan hasn't even called to check on the baby." That moment crystallized a truth I hadn't yet realized. Family isn't always about blood or marriage. Sometimes it's formed through crisis, compassion, and the difficult choices we make. The cabin had undergone both physical and emotional restoration. The room that had briefly been a nursery was now my office, allowing me to work remotely 3 weeks each month. My marketing firm was so impressed with how I handled the Nature Life campaign that they promoted me to strategy director, offering me more flexibility. Even my parents, who hadn't been to the cabin since Grandma Betty passed, came to visit for the first time. They brought Grandma Betty's favorite fishing pole, the one Ethan had damaged in his tantrum, now professionally restored. "Your grandmother would be proud," Dad said as we stood on the dock, the waves lapping quietly. "Not just of how you've taken care of it, but of how you defended it," Mom agreed. "It takes courage to hold boundaries, especially with family," Mom added, her voice steady. "Grandma Betty knew you had that strength," Dad said softly. The family dynamics had shifted, and they wouldn't be the same again. Ethan remained estranged, reportedly moving to Chicago for a fresh start, according to mutual friends. Claire filed for divorce and started therapy to process the manipulation she'd endured from Ethan throughout their marriage. My relationship with Hazel blossomed into an unexpected friendship. Once a month, I drove to Bridgeport to visit Hazel and Noah, often bringing supplies or watching Noah so she could have a few hours to herself. "I've been thinking about what happened at the cabin," Hazel said during one visit, as Noah napped peacefully. "It taught me something important about boundaries," she added, her voice contemplative. "What's that?" I asked, curious about her insight. "That they're not just about saying no to others. They're about saying yes to yourself," Hazel explained, her words piercing through the tension. "When you refuse to let Ethan take over your space, you're not just rejecting him," she continued. "You were honoring yourself and Grandma Betty's legacy." Her insight hit me harder than I expected. I'd never thought of it that way before. "I'm learning to set boundaries too," Hazel continued, her eyes locked on mine. "With Ethan, with my parents who think I should make it work for Noah's sake, with everyone who thinks they know what's best." We sat in silence, the kind that spoke volumes. Two women, forever connected by a confrontation neither of us had wanted, but one that had shaped both of us in unexpected ways. Back at the cabin, I began establishing new traditions, while honoring the ones Grandma Betty and I had shared. The annual 4th of July family gathering continued, but this time, I sent clear guidelines in advance to avoid any future conflicts. The fishing competition Grandma Betty used to host became a catch and release event, teaching younger family members about the importance of conservation. I also drafted a formal cabin usage policy. Family members could request to use the cabin for short stays, but they had to give appropriate notice and agree to specific rules. The policy was fair yet firm, respecting the property and my rightful ownership of it. Most of the family refused to stay at the cabin after everything that had happened with Ethan, avoiding the awkward reminder of his actions. Though Claire visited often, finding peace in the cabin's serene surroundings. One evening, as the autumn leaves painted the surrounding forest in fiery hues, I found myself rereading Grandma Betty's journal. One entry I hadn't noticed before caught my eye. Property isn't just land or buildings, it's a responsibility, a trust. When you own something, you become its steward, not just its possessor. The cabin isn't valuable because of its market price. It's valuable because of the wisdom it holds, the memories it keeps, and the sanctuary it provides. That's why I'm so cautious about its future. Not everyone understands this type of stewardship. The passage resonated with everything I had learned during this journey. The cabin wasn't just a vacation spot or a piece of real estate. It was a legacy of values, respect for boundaries, appreciation for nature, and the courage to protect what matters most. As I close this chapter of my life, I'm grateful for the difficult lessons it has taught me. Learning how to stand firm in the face of manipulation. Recognizing the difference between real need and entitlement. Realizing that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is maintain clear boundaries. Remember, boundaries aren't walls to keep people out. They are guidelines that show others how to respect your life. Sometimes, the strongest act of self-love is simply saying no, especially when everything and everyone is pressuring you to say yes.